Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, college football fans, pro football fans across the nation and around the world. This is Tim May with the Tim May Show featuring Clay Hall. Clay?
How are we doing?
I'm doing extremely well, man. Had a nice weekend. It was chock full of watching football from Thursday through Sunday night as we speak here, as we record. There's a Monday night game coming. But I'm telling you, it's going to have to go a long ways to beat that the Bills-Ravens game from late Sunday night. What a finish to that game. Josh Allen on his way to MVP again. But that comeback was spectacular. But speaking of falling flat on your face, obviously Ohio State did not. Ohio State beat 55-point underdog and FCS foe Grambling the way it was supposed to, 70-0. I give Ohio State kudos. And of course, the fall on your face part was, of course, the Browns, which had two missed kicks, which killed them in that game. But other things, some drop passes did. But I don't know. That's my take on the weekend, which included also getting to watch my grandsons do different sports.
Well, Ohio State held serve, and as the kids say, everybody got fed.
Yes.
5 running backs, 4 tight ends.
Yes.
This club is ready. In fact, of Julian Sayen's 18 completions, 7 were to tight ends. So perhaps,
I'm telling you,
every year, I think you're one of the guys who pounds the tables for the stinking tight end. Maybe
the tight end is almost always open in some form or fashion. I'm modifying what I always used to say is the tight end is always open on almost every level of football at any time. And a quarterback who recognizes that and exploits that is going places. Need I say more names than Tom Brady, who exploited the tight end like no quarterback before or since.
Yeah.
And Julian saying, but this is really good coaching. You can see, man, from Billy Fessler, the quarterback's coach, from Brian Hartline, the offensive coordinator, from Ryan Day. You can see where they're going in all of these things. The way they've exploited the tight end the first 2 weeks of the season is crazy.
Well, yeah.
And
it's a new day.
Yeah. But Ohio State, my question coming out of that game Saturday when they trounced, is that the best word you're using?
Yeah.
Trounced Grambling State, first time ever meeting between the two, probably the last, although the band was quite entertaining from Grambling. I thought it was a push though in the halftime shows because Ohio State had the alumni band. They did 4 Script Ohios, and then afterwards the two bands got together and had a good time, Grambling State and Ohio State. But the football game went exactly as forecast. And my big question coming to that game was, who was Ohio State's punter? Because he never played.
Well, the big 6'7" kid from Australia.
But Joey McGuire, ended up punting a lot against Texas. So they're both from Australia, so you can get them mixed up. You wouldn't mix them up if they were standing side by side,
No,
but when you just use their background. But yeah, that's how well things went for Ohio State. And the great thing, Matt Wilhelm and he's coming up. He's a regular on our Monday. On our Monday show, the Tim May Show, featuring Clay Hall. Matt Wilhelm's been a regular with me for several years now, recapping things and looking forward. But as I brought up to him, Julian Sayen had just the right amount of oops to make a coaching point, which was that telegraphed interception he threw at the goal line.
Yeah, he just seemed fixated there. He
did.
He locked on like
Tom
Cruise. He's about to lock on. And
wait a minute, you missed a great pun there. He was fixated. Carnell Tate.
I got you.
But other than that, they walked out of there really well. And hey, you and I, you've been talking more about Turbo Rogers, but we've been pounding the table to knock on wood for Bo Jackson.
Bo Jackson over 100 yards.
Yeah. And one of the touchdown runs he had, man, magnificent. Mm-hmm. But the bottom line is keep everything in check. That was against an FCS team that was outmanned across the board. But you know what? It's always great when you can play about 75 or 80 guys and they all get theirs, right?
Yeah, and this week it gets a lot tougher. I know we'll talk about the Bobcats later in the week, but a narrow loss to Rutgers to open and then knocking off West Virginia in convincing style.
And that crowd down there at Peden Stadium, man, was going.
In Peden.
The packed Peden. The packed Pedeneers. Go ahead now.
Ohio University is coming off a MAC championship.
Right.
Humbled Miami in that game.
Right.
Got a pretty good quarterback, 247 yards passing against the Mountaineers. A young man, a senior out of Tempe, a place that we've been a few times.
Yeah, absolutely. And but Navarro, I mean, he's a great dual threat. And that Matt Wilhelm and I talk about that, what that poses for a defense in terms of getting ready for, the great thing about college football and the tough thing for a college football defensive coordinator in defense is every week it's almost a different assignment. It's a different test. And this is going to be the test of an offense that likes to have their quarterback throw and run, and will have running plays for the quarterback and stuff. So we'll see how Caleb Downs and company with Matt Patricia and Tim Walton and everybody else drawing up the plans for him, how they deal with yet another test. But I wanted to get to this. The Browns missed an extra point, and the Browns missed a field goal. It's not important to name the guy who did that because I don't think we're recording this on Monday afternoon. He probably won't be playing
you think he's
next time out. Dude,
it's a shame. I mean, the Browns played well enough to win.
Yes, they did. Now, they dropped some passes, too.
This young man, a rookie, I think, out of Syracuse, just missed a PAT and missed a field goal that was not.
Post-game, he owned it, though. Post-game, he owned it.
He did.
But in the NFL, man, you can say that's too harsh to be maybe looking for another kicker on a Tuesday, but it's the NFL. I mean, the NFL is about whether you make these plays or not, whether you make these kicks or not. Just like you look at now, the Ravens aren't looking for a new running back in place of what's his face,
Mr. Henry.
Yeah, Mr. Henry. But that fumble was huge.
It
was. And they lost the game because Buffalo had the momentum and rolled it like a snowball right down the hill, man, on them.
Well, Henry's got he's got a resume. He's got production. He's got a lot of things to point to. This young man beat out, I think, a veteran. And it's a shame. I mean, Flacco threw 2 picks as well. But my gosh, Myles Garrett, 2 sacks, 4 tackles for loss. They held Cincinnati to 141 total yards. Joe Burrow's third lowest throwing output ever, 113 yards. It's just a shame because when you lose the opener, then it takes 2 W's to get you back ahead of the chains.
Yep.
And it's just, oh my gosh. And I thought that's what
you're running out of words there.
Well, I was about to feel like the alma mater, and after playing so well for a while, and I'm not going to get into Mississippi State and all that.
Yeah, go ahead and get into it. But let me throw this one thing in there about Burrow and Cincinnati. They lost so many games last year where they racked up points and yardage, and I guarantee you Joe Burrow would trade yesterday, or excuse me, as we record this yesterday, for those games last year, which just took a magnificent offensive machine out of playoff contention, because they couldn't stop anybody when they needed to. Yeah. They stopped the Browns when they needed to, and they lucked out, having a couple of makeable missed kicks. But the bottom line is in the National Football League, you get a WIN in the NFL anytime you can.
Absolutely.
Hey, brag about your by the way, speaking of tight ends a minute ago when I brought up Julian saying in the tight ends, we're going to have a former tight end, Jake Butt, address what he saw. He was a color analyst for the Big Ten Network on Saturday's game, and you got him at halftime. Just a quick little blurb on what he thinks about the 2025 Buckeyes, and so that'll be interesting coming up in a minute. And then following that, we're going to have my extended conversation with Matt Wilhelm. But go back to your team now.
Well, what I walked in the door close to halftime. Couple of my sons were there.
We're talking about Arizona State at Mississippi State, ladies and gentlemen.
And it was my birthday, so we had a feed going on. We had the cake was tiramisu, by the way.
Oh.
But as soon as I walked in and I was texting with you, it went to hell. It went to hell.
Isn't that amazing?
Went to hell in a handbasket.
It was a double whammy. Clay May. It was a double whammy. Clay May jinx.
But yeah, Arizona State owned the second half, and somehow Mississippi State held them 3rd and goal to 1. stuffed them. The Sun Devils kicked the field goal to take the lead. And here we go with about a minute and change. And somehow, they perplexed the ASU defense, and Blake Shapen, a Baylor transfer, hits my guy 58 yards to the house with 30-something seconds left.
Crazy.
And the place resembled when, and I know nobody knows Bulldog football, but it was like
cowbell. It's
like we're back to 14 when they were really good, number one in the country. The place went absolutely off the chain.
Do they use an excerpt from Saturday Night Live? The only prescription is more cowbell. Do they use that on their scoreboard sometimes?
Absolutely.
That's
up there. And then they went back to the formula, which has barely been good for them late in the fourth, I guess. It's don't stop believing. If there's a timeout, all the lighters go up and the phones, and that was kind of the calling card. But it was like to see my sons, who are a little bit attached, one an Ohio State grad, just bouncing off the furniture made my weekend. So
field lights,
anyway.
People.
So there was one thing. Okay, so we beat number.
You sure I threw in there field lights instead of street lights?
Yeah.
Go ahead now.
So they beat number 11 team, number 12, whatever poll you're looking at.
Yeah. Is Arizona State still ranked ahead of them?
Well, no, Arizona State fell out of the poll, but we didn't jump in the poll like
that's baloney.
Like other teams who beat somebody who was unranked. Anyway, so
any deli you walk into in America, they will say that's baloney.
Yeah,
I mean that's baloney. You know it's baloney. I know it's baloney. Did Ohio State fall from number one after beating an FCS team the way it should, 70-0? Even though it was an FCS team? No, they stayed number one.
Right.
So, yeah, that's baloney.
Whatever. Just thrilled. It gives you that, I think the euphoria that comes with.
There may have been some povers that don't even know Mississippi State did that. They fell asleep.
Yeah.
Because you know what?
It was late.
Everybody was watching Oklahoma handle Michigan.
Yeah, let's get back to Ohio State, because I don't want our fans and viewers and all that. Why is he talking about them? Why is he always
No, because it was the biggest upset of the day.
Bingo.
There you go. That's why. Number 2, Mississippi State's coming off a woeful season. Number 3, nobody knows how good Mississippi State is right now, because they brought in so many new players.
Yeah.
You know, it's like Florida State brought in so many, revamped their team. Somebody was asking me the other day, I mean, it wasn't who I liked to be national champion. It was more of a sleeper for the playoffs, who I think's coming on. I said, you got to keep your eye on Florida State. They're a totally different team than they were a year ago.
No question.
They are good on both sides of the line of scrimmage, or as you call it, the ditch.
Yeah.
They are good on both sides of the ditch. I would call it more of a trench, because it's warfare. But they're good on both sides of the ditch, and they've got a playmaker at quarterback. Is he a Dan Marino prototype? Absolutely not. Did he make plays against Alabama that Alabama still hasn't figured out? Absolutely he did. So Mississippi State, same thing. They got a new quarterback who can make plays.
Well, they should win the next 2 against my boy Rob Harley, who's the DC at Northern Illinois. They welcomed them in 2 weeks. And then many people down there are saying this sets the stage for Tennessee in Davis-Wade Stadium in Stark Vegas, the 4-0 Bulldogs against, I'm sure, will be the 4-0 Vols.
By the way,
we shall see.
You grew up a Mississippi State fan because of a quirk of birth.
Yeah, my dad
why else would you? I don't think Mississippi State Nation is quite the same as Bulldog Nation. Would not be mixed up with Buckeye Nation.
No, it would not.
But who's the Wade? Who is the Wade in the name of that stadium?
Davis-Wade Stadium.
Is it Davis Wade? Is that the guy's name?
No, that's.
I said who?
My understanding is it's two.
Right, but who is the Wade? Do you know who the Wade is?
I don't, because it was Scott Field to me. It'll always be Scott Field.
It had to be somebody with big donor. See, I grew up an Alabama fan. Wallace Wade was the head coach at Alabama. Then he went from Alabama to Duke. Imagine that transition,
right?
Way back when, and he won a national championship at Alabama. Then he went to Duke. The Duke Stadium's named after Wallace Wade.
Yes.
So, I mean, he was a big time coach way back in the 20s and 30s and stuff. But go ahead, you were going to make a point.
Well, that stadium, which used to be a cracker box, 33,000 is now 65.
That's why they played their big games in Jackson.
They now have the second largest scoreboard in America.
Wow.
What made me very nervous, and if you're a MSU fan, this cowbell thing,
right?
Because many schools in that league wanted to be done with that crap, artificial noisemakers,
right?
And every time I kept saying to my sons, they are ringing the bell when they get to the line of scrimmage. That ain't the deal. The deal was you shut up so those your opposition can call the signals. And I said, I guarantee you, and I think to Billingham's credit, he didn't cry about it. He said that's college football, but you can get called up in front of Greg Sankey or whoever, because if you don't follow the letter of that law, they basically told them, we'll get rid of those.
Yeah.
And
well, I know Ohio State has cranked up its volume, and they've done it artificially to a certain extent with, and they told you it was coming, with a much deeper speaker system and stuff. I've been down the sidelines now 2 games in a row at the end of the games, and I'm literally picking up what you're saying because I'm halfway deaf coming from it. Everybody's picked up on that. I mean, even Autzen Stadium, they're running stuff through the PA for sure. It seems like to me, some people argue they don't, but I go, there's no way they don't in some form or fashion. We've all known Penn State's done that for decades, but who cares, man? The atmosphere for these games, like Michigan at Oklahoma, it was off the chart.
Yeah.
And when the home team is doing something really well, it really goes off the chart. Yeah. So, hey, I tell you what, speaking of going off the chart, let's get back to what we were talking about earlier about Julian Sayin and tight ends. You got to talk to Jake Butt, a Pickerington native who did extremely well at Michigan, got that ridiculous knee injury in the bowl game, and never really got that pro career like a lot of people forecast for him. But now he's doing analyst work for Big Ten Network now for several years, and you got to talk to him in the press box during Ohio State's victory over trouncing, that is, of Grambling. Well, real quick, set this up for us.
Well, a couple of things. This is very hurried. He's at halftime. He hasn't seen the end of the game.
He didn't need to,
and he certainly didn't see Michigan, Oklahoma, which I asked him about Bryce Underwood. Well, he's only had the one game in his mind. It was hours before that game kicked, and he's in a hurry. He's downstairs trying to get coffee or a hot dog and run back up a flight of stairs to get to the booth. So it just seems a little jostled there, but I tried to do.
I don't think I would apologize for anything. You're not really setting it up. It's more like you're going, folks, I'm sorry I was so bad. When in fact, it's good sound.
Yeah, we got to it. It just keep in mind, this is halftime of the Grambling game.
Yeah, and it's always good to get another perspective of a guy who really, he's a Michigan man, except he grew up in Pickerington. So without further ado, let's get to Jake Butt.
Two-time former All-American at Michigan would be Jake Butt. You've seen 6 quarters of Ohio State. What do you think?
Well, the defense is obviously going to compete for one of the best in college football. We knew that, but I think what you saw this week was what Ryan Day told us to expect to see, progression of the offense. To me, I thought the decision was right to start Julian Sayin because of what we're seeing today. Accuracy, ball placement, the mental processing. He's playing like a guy that's played much more than what he really has. So expect a continuation of that throughout the game, throughout the season.
Ohio State is balanced on both sides of the ball?
Yes, I would say so. I mean, pick your poison. They've been running the ball well today, but, if you're Ryan Day, you want a Heisman campaign for Jeremiah Smith, you got to keep feeding him.
Why weren't you a Buckeye, my man?
I grew up in Columbus, and Michigan offered me, and honestly, it was a great decision. I met my wife up there and had a great career.
Bryce Underwood, was it really $12 million? And he looks worth it right now.
I don't know. I got to see his bank statements, but good for him if it is. I'm sure it's up there, and it looks like he deserves every penny.
What's your reaction of Michigan has gone through a long, drawn-out saga?
Yeah.
What's the take up there now?
Just happy to be talking about football, honestly. Just happy to be talking about both teams and football going forward. That's what it should be about.
I'll never forget the Charmin truck that pulled up in your front yard.
Yes.
Following your draft
Yes.
day,
Yep,
correct? Is that deal still in place?
I'm with Dude Wipes these days, so shout out to my guys at Dude Wipes. They're everywhere. They're with the Cleveland Browns. Dude Wipes, get you some Dude Wipes.
All right, and are you still a newlywed?
Yes, we celebrated a year at the end of April this year.
Things going well.
Things are going well.
I think you're a rising analyst.
Thank you.
I think you have a great feel for the game. Kind of a match made in heaven.
Think so. I'm having a good time, and that's most important. So thank you.
Jake, thanks for the time, brother.
All right, we'll see you. Thanks.
Paul Keel's there.
Yeah, chiming in.
Yeah,
Hurry
chiming
up,
in,
Paul.
trying to run everybody's business
No.
per usual. No, I'm just messing. But yeah, it was. Man, I've liked Jake Butt. Who cares where he went to school?
Yeah,
The guy's a class individual.
no doubt, and he can bring it. That's what I would say. He can bring it.
I told him I texted him yesterday. As a matter of fact, on Sunday, I watched the replay of the Ohio State game, which I record, because I'm an idiot. I watch football all the time when I'm not doing chores, and thought he did a great job of bringing continued entertainment, if that's the right term, or information through a blowout.
Right.
That's
the hardest game.
Only the diehard Ohio State fans were probably watching at the end. And that's talent unto itself right there to keep people interested.
No doubt. I wish I had more time. I kind of, it's weird that the second question is, why weren't you a Buckeye?
Yeah.
But, it just always struck me funny because I think I was in the middle of saying Urban didn't recruit you. What I think his career was 2012 to 2016. And then drafted by the Broncos, played 3.5, I think, and then
right.
But Sharman has gone away, but Dude Wipes are
Dude Wipes, man.
They're taking care of him.
Yeah. I have a septic tank. We have where I live, we have a well and septic tanks, and those things are forbidden to go into a septic tank.
Correct.
And
we have the same.
And I'm not. This is gross as I'm going to get, but anybody who's ever seen New York City clean out its sewer systems from time to time and seen all the Dude Wipes and everything else that are in it.
Yeah.
Wow. It is what it is at this point, but mankind moves on. Hey, let's get now to
to your boy.
Yeah. Let's get now to my regularly scheduled programming, which is Matt Wilhelm on Mondays on one of our 3 shows a week. Matt Wilhelm, former Ohio State All-American linebacker, part of the 2002 national championship team, played in the NFL for those many years as a linebacker. And we had a really interesting conversation here, and it involves also him being an assistant coach at Lakewood St. Ed's. And, they're off to a 3-0 start, and they're playing Glenville this week. What a showdown that's going to be. But the bottom line is, just being a coach, man, coaching high school guys, I don't care if you do have a roster like Lakewood St. Ed's, it's still what a task, right?
No doubt. One question for you from the history book.
It's too late for me to ask him a question, but go ahead.
Right. So Wilhelm is 6'5"-ish.
Yeah.
Lean.
Yep.
Would he be a modern day Cousineau? Was Cousineau kind of that angular kind of linebacker?
Cousineau was a lot like him. I mean, Arvell Reese, I'm not comparing the two, but Arvell Reese is built kind of like Matt Wilhelm was. Matt Wilhelm was 235 pounds, whatever, but
long.
One of those guys just tough as nails, and liked mixing it up, like most of the great linebackers do. And by the way, of course, we get into a conversation about who won the Defensive Player of the Week award. Okay. The Offensive Player of the Week award for Ohio State was Jeremiah Smith. The Defensive Player of the Week was a freshman linebacker named Riley Pettijohn. Yeah. And as I bring up to him, the impression he made on that game at the start of the second half.
Yes.
We knew there wasn't going to be a Grambling comeback, but for sure,
he slammed the door.
Boom. One last shot or 2 last shots, and that was the end of that. But let's get to my conversation with Matt Wilhelm.
Promised, ladies and gentlemen, every Monday during the football season and some bonus Mondays before and after, Matt Wilhelm joins the Tim May Show featuring Clay Hall. Matt Wilhelm, once again, man, welcome back. Your Lakewood St. Ed team is 3-0. What's the best thing about being 3-0? A chance to
go 4-0.
and Ohio State is 2-0 with a chance to. It's 2-0 with a little bit of an asterisk because I mean, anytime you beat an FCS team, that was expected, right? Yet when you beat them as badly as expected, well, that's a good day in the neighborhood, right?
It absolutely is. And I think, what was really, really cool about watching Ohio State, and I'll showcase some players here against a school like Grambling. And I know they probably have one of these games, almost every season. But I think to go back to, Texas, such a high, and then you get Grambling. And I'm not trying to say that it's a low, but I think the gift in that, and now that, I have a son who's going to potentially be competing at the collegiate level, it's the opportunity. And I know that we've talked in years past about the excitement of the recruiting classes to get these recruits on, and sometimes the payoff is 2-3 years down the road before they actually, get that opportunity to go showcase their skills.
Yep.
But in a game like this, we're going to rattle off names like the backup offensive lineman that played well, Riley Pettijohn, who played, defensive player of the game. You start to, some of these, Bo Jackson from the Cleveland area, from VASJ, you get Isaiah West, who we actually played last year from St. Joe's Prep in the Philly area. So you get to see these names that the fan base gets so excited about when they commit to Ohio State that you don't get to see in the big games until years of development, right?
Yeah.
But in a game like Saturday against the, Grambling, who, probably was one of their check and, blew some of that on getting the band to the game, which was a battle of the bands more than it was a battle on the football field.
Yep.
Amongst the players. I was excited to watch, the Armstrong twins from Lakewood St. Ed's get in the game and see some of that young talent because, I hope, God willing, wherever Mason ends up, whether it's North Carolina or wherever, that opportunity, early in his career where he doesn't have to blow his red shirt, you get to go out there, you get to compete, you get a little bit of payoff for your hard work in the weight room and on the field. And I think that's what really Saturday was for Ohio State. And before talking about the backups, I think what I loved most about it was first year play caller Brian Hartline and his staff, and I'm going to focus on the offense here, scheming up success for Julian Sand, to, easy throws, down the field throws, easy reads against, an inferior opponent. You got the ball to Jeremiah, you got him his yards, you got him his touchdown, and you got him out.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a reoccurring theme amongst a lot of the true starters on offense to get them in, go execute what we practiced all week. The installation of the game plan, they were in exactly what we thought they were. It ended up exactly like the look squad, worked with us all week. You get the touchdown, you get the yards, and then you get those guys out. And then you get to what I just talked about was all those 2s and 3s to be able to play in this football game. And, their parents in the stands getting to see their son, play in an Ohio State football game for the very first time. It's a very exciting time.
Oh, yeah. And even for Julian saying the best start ever in terms of consecutive completions, the best start of a game ever by an Ohio State quarterback, 16 in a row. And then boom, he got a lesson. Don't telegraph where you're going with the ball. And he got picked at the goal line. We're talking about it could have been 77, and
right.
77-0. But the bottom line is he even got a lesson learned there. Things aren't ever as easy as they feel. They aren't ever as easy as they seem, and right on down the line. But, getting Jeremiah Smith on track was big. Obviously, the coaches named Jeremiah Smith the offensive player of the game. And then they named Riley Pettijohn, freshman linebacker out of Texas, the defensive player of the game. Dude, it is rare that you've seen a guy, and I know they were playing Grambling, much outman. I thought Grambling played hard, by the way, throughout the game. Did not quit. But when it's rare that you see a young linebacker go into a game and just have sudden impact like he did.
Yeah.
The stupid score, and then, of course, the big hit that caused a fumble. But, what did you see out of that young man that, clearly it helps his confidence, but what do you think James Laurinaitis is thinking right now about his linebacker core?
I'm glad. Well, what James is thinking is, I'm glad he's in scarlet and gray, and that's, to talk about Riley Pettijohn and again, the linebacker position in particular. Like, I know that in years past, you and I always, again, not only have my eyes on the 4-star, 5-star recruits that commit to Ohio State, but it's those linebackers that we are in on that end up coming. And we've talked about some, there's the payoff where they become the guy, right? And there's some, because of how talented, we recruit each and every year, some guys just don't pan out. They end up hitting, now you can hit the portal, or maybe they're a fifth-year guy that's hung around long enough and now it's their time. Well, Riley Pettijohn's a guy that, and I think what's so cool about him is being from Texas and choosing Ohio State. And then I think only because they for some reason, I think his mom and dad show up in my algorithm on social media, probably because I follow him. And the parents being so in love with Ohio State too, so when you've got TCU, Texas Tech, Texas A&M, UT in Austin, and an SEC ball down there, SMU, that's so easy to stay home at an amazing university and you go start your career. But then you have two, loving parents for their kid start just rattling off why Ohio State. And I think it's almost like, it aids in recruiting, why leave Texas and come to Columbus, Ohio, of all places in the United States? It's like, it's the culture, it's the winning, it's the development, it's the love, it's the locker room. And then you go get the payoff of the kid, gets that opportunity to play early, and he's as good as everyone thought he was. Yeah. So it's just, I'm excited for that. I'm excited to watch these linebackers play. I think games like this a lot, and if you're going to play a 16-game season like we did last year, the opportunity to develop some depth, get that, how do they deal with the anxiety? How do they deal with, playing in front of 105,000 people? If are they a practice player and they see a dip in their performance, in game for what? Why? Was it anxiety? Was it nerves? Was it physicality? Was it technique? How do they transfer? And I think that, for Ohio State, the number one team in the country right now, who hopes to play 16 games or more again, it's a great opportunity to see keen holes. It's a great opportunity to see, the depth at running back, to see some of those number 2 wide receivers, because, those 3 guys that we have, Ennis, Tate, and Smith, are going to be the guys predominantly all the time. I thought the tight end room, really showcased its depth, which Ohio State's kind of really never had this kind of depth. And we talked about that last week after the Texas game. The depth at tight end, it allows us to be very multi-personnel. Yeah. So when we're playing a bigger game, and again, OU is a good football team, just beat West Virginia, a rebuilding West Virginia football team, and took Rutgers to the limit in the second half in week 1. So they're going to come in with a chip on their shoulder, no doubt. But to come out in multi-personnel, 11 personnel, 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, you come out in 12, 2 tight ends, 1 back, 2 receivers. It's like you can go 13 personnel like we see when we get down to that jumbo package down inside the goal line. Then you get play action if, in multiple tight ends are out in routes and they're capable blockers. So I hate to say this, and I'm not discounting, Grambling, what Grambling football represents, but it was an amazing audition for a lot of young players to showcase their development over the last, say, 12 to 18 months in the Buckeye uniform.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I took it for what it was. I mean, it's the kind of sort of like scrimmage you'd like to have in preseason with somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't really count, but it does count. Number 1, number 2, Bo Jackson, you got to see highlights of him up in your neck of the woods. Now everybody knows what we've been talking about Bo Jackson for months now, this guy, but yet, you definitely put a little salt on that about, the competition and who they were going against, but you don't take away from that. The want to of Riley Pettijohn, the want to of Bo Jackson was obvious to anyone in the stadium. I mean, there was an edge to them, and because they want to play, man. They want to play now.
Well, there's no doubt.
They understand the pecking order, I'm sure, but not really, because where they came from, they were their superstars.
Yeah, right? But I also think for Ohio State, the recipe of last football season with Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson, if you have the right culture and you have the right kids within that culture, and it's not about me, it's about us, especially for a freshman, right? Who's going to be, who's grateful and humble, but yet also betting on themselves to go, when I get that opportunity, I'm going to go have a payoff, which we saw against Grambling. This is an amazing problem to have because we saw the need for two horses, in the stable that were the guys last year, and not just, and many other schools might just have one, and then there's a drop off to number two. Well, in our room, and it's the expectation at Ohio State that there should be no drop off, that Donaldson and Peoples and eventually Bo Jackson can all go in and know who to pick up in pass pro, which I'm sure is going to be a huge part. It's like, okay, you take the ball and what you do with it with the ball in your hands. You've been doing that since you're in Pee Wee, but picking up that blitzer, IDing that blitzer or that nickel coming off the corner, that's going to get him on the bench. Not being able to do that, get a guy like in a stable on the bench sooner than what he does with the football in his hands. Can you be accountable? And I think this is that, again, I just keep saying it's an amazing opportunity for these younger guys to go out and play a substantial amount of time. It builds their confidence. It builds the coach's confidence in the player based on what they've been seeing in practice, and an amazing problem for Ohio State to have. And I think you just, again, I have the stats up here on my computer. You just keep scrolling through the stats because of the number of players who had carries, who had catches, who had touchdowns, who had tackles. And I think that's also, when Ross Bjork or, Gene Smith put this schedule together years ago, why you schedule a Grambling, soon after Texas is for a game just like this.
Yeah. I mean, it's good for anybody to get a payoff after working their butt off.
Yes.
Hey, I like
no
that.
doubt.
I like what that's the payoff for working your butt off. I like that. Hey, speaking of that, before we move on to something, a couple other things I want to get to. Talk to me about what the motivation is this week. I call it the battle for parentheses, the copyright of close parentheses Ohio. The battle for Ohio, which Ohio State commandeered the term Ohio many years ago, even though the Ohio University is older than Ohio State. But Ohio State just said, "Hey, we're gonna be Ohio." You might have a shirt on right now or something that says Ohio instead of Ohio State on it. But I'm going past that. But we've all seen these MAC schools come in on occasion and give Ohio State a hell of a fight.
Sure.
Unexpectedly sometimes. What's your take on what the motivate? I'm trying to think. Did y'all play a MAC school?
We did. We played. I know we played. I think Josh Cribbs at Kent State. We might have played OU.
Did y'all play Northern? Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
We didn't play. I think we played one every year, if I'm not mistaken. Now, and to answer your question, the one thing that it was a thing when I was a player there, was probably a thing before. If when that kind of like say the in-state MAC school Ohio State games really started getting scheduled, by Andy Geiger, old AD, it was all we would hear is Ohio State Buckeyes, and maybe it was a motivating factor that our coaches, made up in some cases, but so said kid who's from Ohio playing at OU is playing with a chip because Ohio State never recruited him.
Right.
And the laundry list of kids whose dream was to play at Ohio State and they had no interest. So they ended up at a great school and a great football school in the MAC, now competing, almost year in, year out for a MAC championship at Ohio University. Right. And so that was always something. And I just remember even go back to my playing days, and I don't remember who it was, but they play you tough because they have nothing to lose. So you're talking like, double passes, reverses, fake punts. So you have to be on high alert because their job in a game that they're not supposed to win, or especially even have it be close, is all hands on deck, right? Yeah. They're going to unload the clip against Ohio State to keep it as close as long as it possibly could be. And in some cases, and again, I don't remember who the opponent was. I remember even some cases, being a starter at Ohio State and going into halftime, maybe it's, 17-7 us, but like we've played sloppy, kind of like down to their level, and they're fighting us and maybe stopped us on fourth down. Otherwise, the game would be a little bit more wide open. And I'm like, damn, like they're not going to beat us, but they're better than I expected.
Yeah.
And this is the denominator that I think separates a school like Ohio State and a school in the MAC. Is not only elite talent, but it's elite coaches. Coaches' ability to go in, diagnose the successes or lack of successes or how they're trying to attack us that maybe we weren't ready for. And we fix all those things at half. And then what you see is like 48-7. Like, they don't score again in the second half, and you run off, 4 touchdowns, and then you enter into a situation late in the fourth quarter where it looks a heck of a lot like maybe the fourth quarter of the Grambling game, where you're playing some of your twos and some of your backups because the game is now over.
Yeah.
But they're gonna fight, and I think for OU, the fact that they went toe-to-toe with the Big Ten football team in week 1, the fact that they beat a Power 4 football team in West Virginia, who's rebuilding, in week 2 at home, their confidence is super high. So they might come in and be intimidated by Ohio Stadium and how loud it is and 107,000 fans, but they have immense confidence in what they can do inside the white lines. And I think, Ohio State, very similarly, the way they came out against Grambling, if we come out, young and hungry and disciplined with a great game plan and we go execute, I think, we will roll, early too. Not necessarily as easy it was against Grambling, because I think OU is going to have better players, but it's going to be a very similar result where we're going to suffocate you on defense. Our ones are going to go out, and Matt Patricia's going to have a great plan. I think that Brian Hartline will construct a game plan along with Coach Day for Jeremiah Smith to create opportunistic situations to get our playmakers, their yards and their plays. And then eventually maybe, mid-third quarter. And that's the one thing that I'll say that we were able to do against Texas that, that you want to be able to do. Because some of these games, like to your point about being an exhibition or a scrimmage, is like the rehearsal. How do you go in at halftime, make those adjustments, and then come out and perform them in the third quarter, and then go down the field and score, get a stop, maybe score again, and then you might not ever see Julian Sand and Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate the rest of the football game.
Yeah. Bottom line is cut the tape. But yeah, I wanted to ask you this though. The Navarro kid, the quarterback for OU, is just a playmaker.
Yeah.
Is he a great passer? No. Can he hit the big play occasion? Absolutely. I mean, just ask West Virginia. Like with Ohio State last year against Riley Leonard in the national championship game, a guy that can run and throw. Well, why does it sometimes take a while for a defense to adjust to a guy that can run,
like a dual threat?
Dual threat quarterback that is going to run, and yet, like Riley Leonard, man, he was really good at still finding the creases. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Getting those 5, 8, 11 yards at least early, and then I think it was as much him getting kind of banged on as much as it was anything else that kind of like lessens it as the game goes on. But why is that such an adjustment?
So here's the reason. So first of all, it's a great question, and I think what you have to learn as the week goes on, and this is just for football fans out there. Every time you go all in to learn Grambling, go perform, then you watch it the next day, and then you wipe it, and you forget all the game. You have some carryover, don't get me wrong, but from a coaching standpoint, but you wipe out personnel and numbers and what the QB skills are, and then you have to start, moving on to that next opponent. You start to learn the personality. So that personality changes, the personality of the offense based on personnel groupings, the personality of the offense based on the style. Are they air raid? Are they, a gap scheme team? Are they a zone scheme up front? Is this a pocket passer? Is it dual threat? So you have to unlearn and then learn all the nuances of your new opponent each and every week. And again, for some of our guys who are, they have to get playtime, but they're starting for the first time. It's like, this is these transitions of being a starter, of unlearning and relearning these personalities of an offense. And honestly, it's challenging. It's challenging, mentally. Again, you're still talking college students, who are now being paid to play sports, who probably have off the field obligations in week, yet they're dedicated to nutrition and weightlifting and development to get ready for each and every week. So there's a lot on their plate, and that's what I would say is. And then I think at least for us, and what I always used to love is like hit charts, or escape patterns to learn the personality of a set quarterback is, okay, where is he most efficient? And so, like, where does he like to be? Is that rolling to his right or escaping up and left, where his efficiency goes up super high, and all his receivers know where to look, or the little voids in zone, or where they break away to help their quarterback. So all those little nuances that you have to like unlearn about last week's opponent and relearn. And then lastly, I'll say this when it pertains to like Riley Leonard, or we saw it sometimes with, more so Will Howard probably at Kansas State than really at Ohio State, is some of the called run stuff, like QB runs, are huge in college football now. And what it does, as opposed to the quarterback turning around and handing the ball off to a running back and the quarterback just standing there and carrying out a fake, you now add the running back as an extra blocker, which creates another gap that a player has to be able to fit with the Q running behind it. It just adds, and again, we should know it very well because Urban Meyer did it for the 7 years he was at Ohio State with JT Barrett, almost exclusively just QB run, QB power. You're adding gaps. And if you come out in, a spread formation and you run that QB, so you're spread thin because they can throw bubbles, they can throw the ball down the field, but you've got to be accountable for all the gaps up front too. So you've got guys playing, half pass, half run, reading their key, which might be a tackle, and reacting in. So you can get, I don't say gashed, but you can have some seams within your defense on Q runs. And those are things that, Matt Patricia with stunting the line or, running little gains and stunts does deter the QB run from that point forward.
Do you spy a quarterback like that? I mean, I'm talking about you, Matt Wilhelm, if you were making Ohio State's game plan for this week, because they've got a couple of capable receivers too, but do you just take a guy? And here's the thing people don't understand about a spy. Just because you have a spy assigned to the quarterback doesn't mean that guy can't get blocked. You know what I mean?
Right. Sure.
I mean, it's like everybody thinks the solution is always, well, they weren't spying him. I go, well, it doesn't, if you know if the team is spying you, you can block that guy. Or
I would say, to be honest with you, my answer would be as a spy is no. No, not against Ohio U. No, not against this guy. And I'm just thinking, when I think spy, I'm like, again, look at last night's game. I'm spying Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
I'm spying Josh Allen. Guys that are game breakers that can, take off and run, but if they don't cross the line of scrimmage and you spy, I think also I'd rather have that spy coming on a rush, that extra guy coming on a rush, bring 5 instead of 4, or rush 4 if you feel like you can cook with your 4 down lineman and add him to coverage, which makes him hold the football. And then I just believe this is the other reason why you may or may not spy. And the reason why I advocate for not spying this week is I think our team speed defensively is superior to Ohio U's.
Yeah.
So while he may escape and make some yards, we'll corral him for 3 and it won't be 12.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which puts you in 2nd and 7 and it's not a first down. Whereas, the Lamar Jackson personalities or the kid at Florida State, I don't know if it's Castellanos or whatever it is, you spy him, you don't spy the OU quarterback because you feel like your team speed collectively will be able to corral him. And they're not going to be able to, again, and I'll just say the other side of it is you want to run with your quarterback, your backup better be pretty good because we're going to tattoo him a few times and knock his butt out of the game, as well if you run him too much against
bold words, ladies and gentlemen, from Matt Wilhelm. Hey, keep this short if you can, but I mean, through your entire career of playing football as a linebacker, who was an opposing player that you still were stunned by how good or fast or elusive, no matter how much tape you watch, until you go against a guy one-on-one. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, it's very easy. It's a very easy question to answer. It is. I was a San Diego Charger starting linebacker, and we played Adrian Peterson as a rookie.
Yeah.
I mean, and mind you, Steve Hutchinson, who's a Pro Football Hall of Famer along the offensive line, so they had a great offensive line, but they were just turning around, and they weren't. I think Brett Favre might have been the quarterback at the time, so the Vikings weren't great, but they drafted Adrian Peterson, top 10, and he was different as a player. What
does that mean?
I meant he could take the football anywhere on the field. He could outrun you to the edge. You feel like you have an angle and you're bearing down on him, and he just had a gear that he could hit. that if he made you miss, well, and also super strong,
Yeah.
so you'd bounce off of him. You can fit it up perfectly. You'd bounce off of him, and he's on a safety, and then he either outruns the safety or runs through the safety, and it could be 6 almost any time. And then also, I'll just say, you think you can, run him down and knock him out of bounds, and he just pulls away from you and turns the corner, and also could turn it into 6.
Yeah.
So just an elite talent with elite speed, physically strong, and I think again, 8, 9, 10-year amazing career as a running back in the National Football League. And the other guy that pops into my head, I mean, I played with one in LaDainian Tomlinson, but I think as an opponent, playing Sean Alexander, back in 2004, 2005, probably, I think when he won NFL MVP, was just, he reminded me of an older version of Adrian Peterson as well.
Wow. Yeah. I always looked at Adrian Peterson as one of the, we'd have these neighborhood pickup games where it was kind of organized, but, and we'd play tackle, back in Texas. And all of a sudden you'd run into a team with a guy that was he seemed like he was built out of oak. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, we're
the guys. Here's what I always say as a former player. It's like guys, not necessarily built out. I'll say like linemen, you can say built out of oak. But when there's like
I'm talking about running back.
Jeremiah Smith is this guy.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say, I feel like they're like hatched out of an egg, like a velociraptor or a T-Rex. They weren't birthed. There's no way this came from another human.
Right.
Is my point, because they're just, they don't even lift weights and they look physically jacked.
Right.
Then when you add them to, like look at Jeremiah from year 1 to year 2. You look at Marvin Harrison's another guy who at Ohio State was, everything he was, but then he puts on 15 pounds of muscle in year 2 at Arizona. You're like, what?
Right.
You feel like they're close to ceiling and they just keep getting better with their elite traits that they've had, their whole life.
Where can Ohio State get better this week, in your opinion? I mean, they're coming off a game where you never knew who their punter was. They had one big mistake on offense. That was the interception. Otherwise, they pretty much converted. Defensively, they allowed one drive, and it was because of a couple of penalties that kept it going, maybe. But and then the guy bloops misses a makeable field goal, so the shutout stands. Right. That's why you never pick shutouts. I picked Ohio State 63-0, and I went, well, here you go. And then the guy, thank goodness, misses the field goal. But what do you see where Ohio State can make a stride this week?
So, as I've kind of already alluded, I'm not trying to overlook any opponent, but at Washington, following this Ohio U football game is going to be
there's going to be an off week in between.
Yeah, an off week.
Yeah.
Right, sure. But an off week, playing, practicing against yourself. I think in game, you don't look past Ohio University by any means. But I think what you're going to do is you're going to have some staff members have already been watching and familiar with what Washington is going to run, what type of personnel they're going to have, and what you would love to get in-game execution on, not just in practice, is concepts you might carry forward into the Washington game.
Yeah.
That might be, on a specific set down and distance, Matt Patricia wants to run this blitz with this coverage behind it, just to get it on tape against another opponent, because, and not in practice, even though you can go good and do the same thing in practice against probably a better talent, but you want to do it in game, have installed it, have repped it in practice, and then run it in a game and execute it.
And how does that offense respond to it? Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. What protection do they check to? What does the quarterback do with the ball? Can we, do pre-snap, post-snap look, like we've already seen Caleb Downs do against Texas? Can we keep building, what we've already got cooking? And I think complementary on the other side of the ball, there's going to be concepts, if OU is going to play, man free on third down, and so is Washington, let's dig in the bag. You know what I mean? Let's start layering things in a game where, and again, not trying to take it. I keep saying, for any Ohio University fan watching it, it's like, no, we're not looking past you. We're just trying to build, right? And to be able to go out there and have, again, a two-time starter in Julian Sand, now in a third time, execute at a high level when we install it and we rep it all week. Can you go out and do it? And we carry that concept forward against a next opponent, down the road, that we can run it again and like it in certain situations. I think that's what the gift of this football game is. And then I think lastly, is if it all goes well and you execute, the ones execute on offense and defense, just building that depth. That the same thing that I'm talking about, build on the Grambling game, give more to the three backs, Donaldson, Peoples, and Jackson. Get those two wide receivers, get the, build packages where you like two tight ends and which two tight ends, that I think that's really the gift of a game like this.
Yeah, agreed. Hey, last thing, Lakewood St. Ed's undefeated, rolling a little bit. Would you call it? Y'all are rolling. And what, y'all playing Glenville this week?
Yes, big challenge.
I don't know. When you get ready for a game like, tell me what's going in your brain right now. Even as we're talking, you're thinking about your businesses, but you're also thinking about Glenville, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
Like you told me, you were sitting there on Saturday night. You had like 4 screens going.
Yes.
Which was Michigan, Oklahoma. You were probably glancing at Mississippi State, Arizona State. You had your video from St. Ed's. Who'd y'all beat on Friday?
We beat Huber Heights Wayne.
Yeah, Huber Heights Wayne, big time opponent. And you could probably got some kind of scout thing going on there with Glenville. You're multitasking, but what is it like getting ready for games?
It's fantastic. Truthfully,
because I'm always asking, Ohio State coaches about that. What you're thinking about, even as you're driving your car to work, and what goes on in your brain, I guess, as you're getting ready to go against the
for
Glenville.
sure. So much of, I guess what I've continued to give, and St. Ed's was already kind of doing it, is like, today is going to be a, specific personnel grouping that you think you're going to get. And this is talking as a defensive coach, as defensive players, like, okay, today we're going to work on 11 and 12 personnel and showcase, because we as coaches accumulate so much information. These kids are still teenagers. They're still going to school, going to bed. They're not eat, sleeping, and breathing, watching film. Do they watch film? Yes. So, but we watch so much more. So then how do we break down this film and then showcase it to a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid so that they can understand it and start developing the personality of what the offense likes to do. And also, I'll say on Monday is like a first and second down day, right?
Yeah.
So what do they like to come out on P and 10, fresh off the sideline after a kickoff, what do they like to do on P and 10? Okay. What are the concepts? What's the personality of them as an offense on first down? Okay. Well, what do they do on second down? Second down after an incompletion, second down after a completion, second down after a first down run. Do they throw? Do they go run? And you just start to portray this to your team. And also there's going to be wrinkles that you may or may not be adding. Are you going to carry, a game plan from last week fully over to Glenville? No, you're going to scrap some, you're going to add some, you're going to watch their film and go, well, what do they struggle with? What have teams in their first 3 games, what have they done that was successful?
Yeah.
And you're going to do your very best to implement those same things and see if they fixed it. So it's an evolution, and then next day you go to Tuesday, you probably go, second down, third down. Then you get into, Wednesday, it's going to be more like red zone, 4-minute, 2-minute situations. You might even throw a little bit of no huddle. Thursday is predominantly walkthrough, obviously, of course, special teams, but you're going to see everything, their best concepts against what you want to match it with. So our play caller can see that look. You're also going to go over end of half, end of game scenarios, Hail Marys, we do a 2-minute drill, with 1 timeout down 2, we got to go get a field goal, or we got to get a stop to get the ball back onside. It's just, it's why I coach. I love ball. I love watching football games on television, regardless of who's playing, and talk through scenarios. Is even last night's game with, Ravens Bills, gosh, lots of timeouts left. They get Derrick Henry fumbles, Bills go score. They got to get a stop to get the ball back, still down by 8. It was wild. It felt like it was scripted for a movie. But that's for another conversation. But I just love walking through it, talking through it in my head, and again, if I can apply any of those things that I learned through my career and apply it to these kids at St. Ed's, a lot of them who are hungry to win a state championship and go out the right, or compete for a state championship and never play football again. Yeah. And those that are going to move on and just make memories and, and prepare them for, especially again, given I'm doing that for my own son in my house, prepare for the job that is ahead by being a college football player in today's landscape.
Yeah, yeah. The main thing, the words you left out there, but that's what you were talking about throughout the whole thing, was the teaching aspect of being a football coach is crazy.
Absolutely. Yes.
Never ends, especially from a defensive coach's standpoint, which we talked about at the beginning of this segment. Is there's a lot of stuff you did last week you wad up and throw away because the other team is not doing it. He's not running the same offense from last week and stuff. And it's just amazing how thorough. I think high school coaching has come along so leaps and
100%.
bounds compared to where it was 30, 40 years ago. The teaching aspect of it is crazy. And the way y'all can condense it, I think that's the essence of being a great coach, is condensing it. Not what you know, but what can you get your players to know?
Absolutely. And the other big kind of massive caveat, and only coaching, I've coached a couple times at Westlake, the public school in our area for helping out a buddy, but then being at Ed's the last 2 years. The one thing, and not every team can do it, is those, and Ohio State can absolutely do it. And I showcased it, talking about, my career versus a MAC school. It happens at halftime. But if you can make adjustments in game, and players accept those and then go do them, that is a massive, massive advantage to not have to wait until halftime or to make a mistake all game long and then you got to go back and fix it before you play your next opponent. When you can tell a guy, change your blitz angle from, running the banana to make it a little bit more sharp, the next thing you know, he makes a TFL by, adopting that quick change. You're like, that's when you kind of feel as a team. And I think it's, again, being 3-0 is great, best opportunity, next is go 4-0, but you have kids that are bought in. You have kids that want to, end their career the right way, the same way, Ohio State and that great senior class last year, they went out the right way. And that's what we're doing. And again, the hardest part is forget what happened last week. We got to, and flip the page, which sometimes, kids want to say, well, I played really good last week.
Yeah.
Remember when I did this? They do want to keep talking about the thing. You're like, I don't give a crap.
That's what's that again.
It didn't help us next week. You know what I mean? So
exactly.
But I love the process. And I think that's where, not to make it, bring it all full circle, like talking to my son every day, because I'm also a dad, but to talk about ball and, and talk to him about, technique and watching his film and being as critical of him as his coaches are and holding him accountable to chasing greatness and winning is what I love about this football game.
Yeah, and you've really got something when the kid wants that as opposed to endures it. That's what's cool. Hey, Matt Wilhelm, as usual, man, it's a slice. And I appreciate you coming on the Tim.
My pleasure, Tim. Thanks for having me.
The Tim May Show featuring Clay Hall once again, my man.
Love it. Thank you.
Good luck this week against Glenville. You're gonna
appreciate it, brother. We will.
No,
They're good.
I'm messing with you, brother. Thanks, man.
Right. You got it.
They're always good, right?
Man, I've liked Matt Wilhelm since the first time I met him. And I told you, I mean, I'll relive this a million times, but after Ohio State won the national championship and they got back home and they were talking about the celebration and we were interviewing some of the players. Remember that in the atrium of the Woody Hayes Athletic Center? And he goes, it seems like, hardly anybody picked us, even that May guy. And he pointed to me. I go, whoa, man, you got me mixed up with somebody else. I said, I'm on record in all kinds of areas, picking you on radio, TV, in the newspaper. I said, you're talking about Mark May.
That's right.
He goes, yeah, you're right. He's apologized about it ever since. I go, that didn't hurt my feelings, man.
I'm glad you got Matt on retainer, brother.
Oh yeah, man. He knows football and he's immersed. He's like you and I, man, or you and me. Excuse me,
Like
I used the wrong.
You mean?
Yeah, I used the wrong pronoun there. Like you and me because, he's. Like I said, he was sitting there watching 4 or 5 games at one time on Saturday night and fell asleep. And his daughter, came and woke him up. Dad, you got 4 or 5 games going on and different devices. And just like you and I mean, I'm sitting there watching. I'm trying to watch the Arizona State, Mississippi State game. And I'll be honest with you, I missed the big touchdown because I'd flipped back to Oklahoma and Michigan. We'll flip back and the cowbells are going off, and they're going crazy. It's Christopher Walken night. at Davis Wade Stadium, and I just go, "What happened?" And then I saw the replay, and I go, "Yeah," but yeah, he loves football just like you and I do.
My wife was in the background.
Yeah.
And the three of us were like 3 inches away from the screen.
Yeah.
And she takes a picture, and one of us is elevating in the midst of it. So
crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. That it's amazing what that just does for, that's their first sellout in a while.
Yeah.
Et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Now I've got to admit something. I was watching the stylized version of Ohio U highlights.
Yeah.
The win over West Virginia late last night. And when Buffalo fell behind, 15 points or whatever it was.
Not Buffalo.
Buffalo fell behind 15 points to the Ravens. I flipped off of there and started watching that.
My bad.
The accelerated highlights of Ohio U, and I flipped back and I go, oh my goodness. Now I watched them because somebody posted that today on YouTube, which I watch YouTube as much as anything else anymore, if not more, probably more. And there it was. I mean, obviously with fanstreamsports.com on YouTube, I'm watching it a lot, but I watched it again. I went, oh my goodness, I missed a classic.
Yeah.
Both come back and choke all at the same time.
Another thing that I would love to see, and we'll get with the higher ups, can we take calls?
Well, down the road, we're going to do some of these shows live, at least live, and we'll see how that goes.
All right.
And you take calls by looking at the side screen and seeing who's got a question that's not derogatory.
Yeah, Bill's asking so-and-so.
Yeah, doesn't denigrate either you or me, and then go from there. Something because everybody can see the questions. That doesn't mean we have to pick them, right?
Right.
But we're going to go that route. We may even go on the road with this show a few times, is what I'm hearing. So we'll see where that goes. I mean, I really like what fanstreamsports.com has done for us here, and here in our worldwide studios here, actually statewide studios, which is going to be FanStream Sports Ohio, which is what they're calling this local channel. It's based out of Dallas-Fort Worth right now. That's why you see it's DFW on the actual app. But I mean, I'm totally enjoying this, and I think you are too.
Well, this would be one of 4 hubs.
Yeah,
because they're in Dallas, they're in South Florida, and is it SoCal?
Yeah,
the LA area.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, it's getting around, it's getting up. Bottom line is John Gerber's behind it all, and we know Tito Thidoff, our good buddy, is much involved. But man, Tim Ham, our producer, director, editor, I think he works 14 or 18 hours a day.
Yes.
Every day.
He's incredible.
Sometimes to get, that's what the Wright brothers did, man, when they're trying to get that thing flying. But when it flew, it took off. But anyway,
like that analogy.
Yeah, there you go. Sometimes it just comes to you when you try to think of something clever. Homina. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that sums up the weekend as far as we were concerned and what's coming forward. We're going to talk more about Ohio U and Ohio State. And as I said to Matt Wilhelm, it's going to be the battle of the copyrights. The battle for in parentheses the copyrights to close parentheses Ohio. You know what I mean? Because somehow or another along the way, Ohio State determined it was going to be called Ohio.
Jim Tressel and many.
No, even before that. I mean, if you look at Jesse Owens' track uniform, it had Ohio across the front.
But
or at least in some of them.
He would always autograph Yay, Ohio.
Yeah. But so it is what it is. I'll tell an anecdote about that. Might even have my older son, Kyle, come on and give the anecdote about one time when they were down there when Ohio U was beating Ohio State and the angst that caused down on Court Street. But anyway, we'll get to that later in the weekend, or later in the week. But for my featuring Clay Hall co-host, I'm Tim May, and we'll see you next time here on the Tim May Show featuring Clay Hall.